store?
Sure, oh
Okay.
yeah, I didn't even notice that it was.
There's just a bunch of people waiting out.
Sorry,
No,
I'm
that's
like in
okay.
my own world out here.
Service with a smile.
And I'm just sitting in here, I didn't even pay attention.
Yes.
Maya was having a meeting of one.
Oh, sometimes I need my peace and quiet.
Meeting adjourned.
Next week, we have batteries for in your property room. And we have new copies. Obviously, we have to do it. Do you have a problem with us picking a day next weekend? If we're coordinating with Zach, because it's gonna take things out, we're trying to do it as fast as we can, and, I just figured I'd ask since I saw you.
No,
The eating here. They left crumbs. I could see him out of the corner of my eye. You were the only one that could.
Did try to coordinate, so I'm sure.
Hi, how are you?
There's sometimes people trying to keep
Don't
track
have
of
a
people.
file on.
Yeah, I don't know if you picked that up in your work.
Thank you much.
Yeah, no. Hasn't gotten back to me.
Hasn't come back to you.
No, that's not here today. He's out. Yep.
Would you like one?
Sure, yep, I'm filling in.
Short, we have shorter cables.
I'm sorry, what is your name?
Maya.
We found out
Yeah.
36 3/4 switch underneath 2 weeks. Nobody knew. We were thinking. She told me.
I'm
Apologize to me.
Yeah. I worked
I know,
for a very long
that's
time
why,
before we
yeah.
retired.
Oh.
Yeah, I was up there this
It's like a ball game there.
Just a short, maybe a half a year before you retired.
But you've been here a
Oh,
while.
I need
Yes,
to know where to find you.
19 years.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, so, I don't know if it is, but. That should be.
No.
Okay.
There's a 15-minute.
Oh, okay, do you have an extra copy?
Yeah.
If you want me to put that in.
Bless you.
I don't know what it is, but that way I'll have it. He's not gonna be in today.
He usually does.
She said she would love to stay
He's
till
not, he's
5.
off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You go out with the election.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Two-day late.
Kick my butt.
Oh, good luck with that.
You'll be.
Yeah.
There's a holiday.
Get that
And tomorrow's her birthday.
See, Katie doesn't miss anything.
No, she doesn't. Sometimes. That was really good this morning. Are you serious? 15 minutes.
What's that?
Prison work was 15 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Well, you know, they've been.
There are times. So that's why we're prepared in case.
I'm trying to remember.
Bristol called out there and I said I didn't get anything, so I checked the floor when I got back. Well, I planned on coming down this morning and she got set up. Stuff up there.
I think you're the better,
And
you're the
then
more.
I'm gonna go to the prison and then come back out.
Record them.
That's how she's doing. She the breakdown, she doesn't catch the flies before
Hi, Mr. Sheriff, welcome aboard.
Remember it after
I
now.
mean, I might be special, I'll do it to you guys.
Work department.
So it's starting to blow a little bit.
You get more
But it
cash.
also exists. I would like to know what that was.
At least the second.
I know, it sounded very familiar.
I could email that.
If you would, because I mean, there's 20 years.
He's coming back to work on it. Yeah, he's a hot mess this first one. Like he just said, he was having a baby with a girl he was got pregnant.
And I never bothered.
He hit another one now. Or she's pregnant now, like, I don't know, there's something going on, like he's just got a lot of, so he needs money.
He just automatically set it up.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. It was running around trying to, as we were walking the door.
No, it's,
Trevor's coming back, so I think Matt and I cannot leave at some point here.
it's in this.
You sent it, you sent it, because I'm not really getting that.
I don't even know where he was.
Yeah, I did, I'm sorry. You might have it.
Did you come down for veterans?
No.
Oh, is she? Morning. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, the one that has been out.
Okay. Morning, everyone. We ask you to please rise for the opening prayer and pledge of allegiance before we convene our Commissioners' Board meeting. Dear Heavenly Father, in your word it is stated, satisfy us in the morning with your unfailing love, that we will sing for joy and be glad all our days. We know your love is unending and your grace is unlimited. Today we celebrate the United States Marines on their 247th birthday. The Marine Corps has served in nearly every conflict in U.S. history. For the brave men and women in the Marines, we say hoorah and thank them for their service. And Lord, tomorrow we will honor our veterans. You have created these men and women to be the best of society. We pray that they will feel honored. We ask not a single one will feel forgotten or neglected. Let every veteran feel gratitude for their service. Father, we pray that they will not feel isolated or alone, as many have returned from battle or stressful assignments. Place those in these veterans' paths to assist them and provide them with the help they need. We know that a veteran can have very deep wounds, so we ask that you heal each one of them as only you can. Lastly, we ask that you reward them abundantly with your sacrifice, for their sacrifice and service. We would not have our freedoms without these heroes. Continue to protect all our servicemen and women that protect our freedoms. And Lord, you know every veteran by their name. You know their deeds and their needs. Draw each one closer to you and provide them the peace that passes all understanding and enjoy in your presence. These things we humbly place before you and request your continued guidance. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we will convene the Commissioners' public meeting. and ask for the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll move to approve.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Any public comment on agenda items only at this time?
Nothing on that?
Nothing online, okay. This time we'll move on to the Veterans Day proclamation. Commissioner?
The County of Lycoming wishes to make a proclamation to the veterans. Quote from Ronald Reagan: "Some people live an entire lifetime and wonder if they have ever made a difference in the world. A veteran doesn't have that problem." Whereas to more than 4,700,000 World War I veterans that served from 1917 to 1918 and fought for our freedom, thank you for making a difference in the world. And whereas to more than 16,100,000 World War II veterans that served from 1941 to 1945 and fought for our freedom, thank you for making a difference in our world. And whereas to the more than 5,700,000 Korean War veterans that served from 1950 to 1953 and fought for our freedom, thank you for making a difference in our world. Whereas to more than 8,700,000 Vietnam War veterans that served from 1964 to 1975 and fought for our freedom, thank you for making a difference in our world. Whereas to more than 2,200,000 Gulf War veterans that served from 1990 to 1991 and fought for our freedom, thank you for making a difference in the world. Whereas to more than 191,000 Iraqi War veterans that served from 2003 to 2011 and fought for our freedom, thank you for making a difference in our world. Whereas to more than 775,000 Afghanistan War veterans that served from 2001 to 2021 and fought for our freedoms, thank you for making a difference in our world. And now, therefore, we would urge all citizens to join us in a sincere and heartfelt thank you and offer the well-deserved recognition to all veterans and to our Lycoming County Veterans Affairs Office. We thank you for your diligence in making a difference in the lives of our Lycoming County veterans, who are part of the more than 30 million veterans who serve to secure our freedoms and liberty in this great nation. Signed by Scott Metzger, Chairman, Tony Nasser, Vice Chairman, and Richard Maravito, Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Natalie? Natalie, would you like to come up, please, on behalf of the veterans? And you know Mike's out of town.
Yeah.
Could you please come to the podium and anything you'd like to say?
Mike didn't prepare me for this.
That's
so.
okay.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say.
You know
Thank to
what
all
would
of
be
our
nice,
veterans.
Natalie? Just tell the public a little bit about what your office does and how you help veterans on a day-to-day basis, because there are going to be some veterans out there who may need help, and it's important for you to let them know what kinds of things you can do for them.
Yeah, so our office helps mainly with the compensations, pensions, and health care that veterans are eligible for. But we also help them with, right now, a lot of them are struggling paying bills, excuse me. So we're helping right now with a lot of bills that need to be paid, if it's helping them stay in their homes or helping them pay PP&L bill, an electric, gas bill, anything like that, we are there to help. But mainly, sometimes they just need to come in and talk about their service time and have an ear for them to listen.
I think it's important to understand how our Veterans Affairs Department affects not only the veterans in Lycoming County, but some outside.
Right, yep, and that's what we always tell them. We don't turn anyone down. If they want to come from another county into ours, we are there to help them. Yeah.
There were many occasions where the commissioners were at meetings outside of Lycoming County, and veterans have come up to us personally and thanked us for our department.
Wow.
Because they got the job done. their departments were not taking care of their veterans. I shouldn't say it that way, but to the fullest extent. And when you saw some of the numbers, Lycoming County veterans were receiving more awards than Philadelphia. That's a testament,
Wow.
a testimony to our department,
Wow.
of which, you know, we have a great department.
Yeah, we
And we thank you, and so do the veterans.
You know, it's important for the public to understand too that the office is a generator of economic activity, because when veterans are able to secure the pensions and the payments that they're entitled to under the law, that puts money into the economy in the county, and it's not a small amount of money because we have a high percent of veterans, and that's a testament to what Commissioner Massera is talking about, the ability of our office. Some of you who may not have been here a couple of months or two ago, Mike McMunn, who heads the department, described a veteran who came and who had been denied certain awards and other medals, and they researched them and they were able to get that recognition for the veteran. And it also extends to the compensation, getting veterans the compensation that they're entitled to under the law, which doesn't just, it's not like you get out of the service and they say, okay, here's a check, you know, live your life. People have to apply, they have to get their paperwork together, and sometimes it's hard to get that. So you guys have always done a fabulous job. We appreciate that, and the veterans do too. And of course, we thank our veterans today on Veterans Day. When you look at that number, 30 million, and you realize the population is 312 million of the country, I think it's usually about 10% of the population ends up serving, right? That number, for some reason, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a small number that ends up serving for everyone else. So, to our veterans, thank you.
It's important just to not recognize them tomorrow, but recognize them every day of the year. You know, if you see a veteran that has, a lot of times they'll have hats on or a shirt saying what conflict they were in or what war they were in. And if you take a moment and just walk over to them and just, you don't have to introduce yourself, just tell them thank you, stick your hand out and thank them, shake their hand. They are so appreciative because so many of them feel alone, they feel isolated. They come home with, you know, our suicide rate amongst veterans is very high. We have to address that. I had the privilege to go to the Community Arts Center here a few weeks ago. The Vet Center put on a presentation with the veterans. And from the time they're enlisted to the time they come home and what they experience, and they had several veterans talk. And we talked yesterday to another group of people about trauma and how people go through different types of trauma in their life. And how a veteran will come home and they may have to speak to a counselor. And a lot of times they just keep it inside. They don't talk for years and years and years. And if they do talk to somebody, it's important they talk to someone who has that experience, who's been through those things, to help them understand. Because they could tell us what they've been through, and we could say, oh, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Okay, we were your ear for them to listen to. But the thing is, they didn't talk to somebody who's experienced the same kind of conflict, the same kind of trauma. So it's important that we get the veterans the help they need in all kinds of ways, not just psychologically, but economically, any way we can help a veteran. But a simple thank you, or any way you can pay back, is so important. It's so important. And for 3 years, I've sat up here and I do my prayer every week, and one of my themes is the veterans, to pray for them and thank them, because without them, we would not have the freedoms we have. So thank you to your office for assisting.
And we see Keely here today too.
Yep.
Hi,
Thank
Keely.
you.
And it's rewarding. You have a very rewarding position because you're helping these people that gave us something that's unmeasurable.
Yep.
So I know just a simple thank you can see it in your eyes. You know, that's a very small token that you can take a moment and thank them.
Yeah, there are probably a number of us that have been in a restaurant and seen people in military uniforms and offered to pay for their meal. And how many times did you go up and say, oh no, somebody already paid for it? So, you know, it is a success. I mean, we continue to mention about how important thanking the veterans are, and that's just one example of how, people are grateful for the service that they have.
And these people are the best of the best, because last week I joined Larry back at the back of the room there for the Clinton Township Fire Hall, and they awarded a veteran who lost a limb in Iraq. They awarded him Fireman of the Year. So this gentleman came home and continues to serve and runs out on fire calls without a limb. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's a true hero.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was an honor just to walk up to him and say thank you. Not only for what you did overseas, but what you're doing at home in your township. You're still helping people. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Yep.
I'm just gonna skip by here so I can get a picture. All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Hey, Maya.
All right, just want to make note that there was an addition to the agenda. It was the proclamation that we just did, 1.6 for Veterans Day.
Okay.
Moving forward then, for the service award.
Excuse me, I think we need to, I'm going to move to amend the agenda to add the Veterans Day proclamation.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So carried. Thank you.
All right, moving forward, service award. We have today to honor an employee for her retirement in the pre-release center, Christine Walters.
Brad?
Thank you, Commissioners. It's an honor and a privilege today to be here to acknowledge the career and retirement of Christine Walters from the Pre-Release Center. A little bit of history about Christine. She started with the county in November of 2001, and at that time she was a part-time correctional officer at the county prison. She was in that position for about 6 months and then was promoted to a full-time correctional officer and was referred to as a rotating officer. That's an officer that works different shifts similar to our relief officers at this point. She then eventually was promoted to a full-time second shift position and remained in that role until 2007. So she started her career at the county prison and served the citizens of Lycoming County by providing that role for the first several years of her career. In 2007, the county opened the female section of the pre-release center. And what was either a choice of Christine's, or perhaps maybe she was voluntold that that was going to happen, and having the experience that she did, she moved out and helped to open our female section of the pre-release center. Was probably a great decision on behalf of the prison management at that time, because you're taking a veteran officer who knows the job and moving her out into a new role, but also a role that was vital to get that program up and running. She's remained in that position for the last 15 years, and she's worked with various staff members and inmates. She's been very instrumental in the building and the development of that program. She was definitely the perfect fit for that role, just based on her knowledge, her work ethic, and her personality. So moving on to not just her career history, but talking a little bit about her. Christine's the kind of person that has a way of making everybody else do better, work better, have a positive attitude. She comes to work every day with a smile on her face in an environment where it's tough to smile at times. And it was told to me by some of the people that work with her and have worked very closely with her, it's very hard to have a bad day when you work with Christine, because she just tries to brighten everybody's day. And that's not only important for the staff, that's important for inmates. because many of them are at a point in their life where they're down. And it's sometimes positive or just something that might make their day having somebody smile at them rather than somebody coming in with a bad attitude. Christine's worked and trained with various staff over the years, and it's hard to put a value on what that means. We're here to celebrate her retirement, but the county is losing today in the sense that we're going to be losing all of those years of experience and all of the information that she brings on a daily basis. But certainly, the county prison, their staff members, the county pre-release center, their staff members, and the inmates have benefited from someone who has brightened their day and goes out of their way to try to make everybody feel better about themselves. So I just want to personally thank Christine for her dedicated service to Lycoming County Prison and Pre-Release Center, and also her willingness to go above and beyond to make us a better organization. I wish you the best of luck in your retirement, and hopefully you enjoy many travels. I know those are some of the things that she's looking forward to doing, and hopefully she has a very enjoyable and successful retirement. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. Christine, you'd like to say anything?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I'd just like to thank you for a job well done. That's a long time to be in the corrections and stay at the county, because there are other influences out there that can drive you away, and we're experiencing that today with the shortage of COs and supervisors, and I look over the group here, and I can't thank them enough for staying diligent in your duties and having an impact. I mean, the warden's correct. Whenever you can brighten up somebody's day, you're having an impact on them, and especially under those circumstances. I've talked to a number of prisoners that were released from our prison, and the majority, and I will say probably by 90%, are grateful. I'm not saying that was easy, but I'm saying they felt like they were respected, and you showed them dignity, and that's critical to make a smooth operation in a difficult situation. So thanks for your service. We appreciate it, and good luck in the future.
Christine, you should come up so the public can see you.
Christine, I
They
just
need, go ahead.
I just want to add that
There's a camera there.
you worked with two different administrators going back to when Steve Blank was there, and now the current with Rob there, and you were there with the transition with the women when they opened the women's wing. You were very helpful and assisted that a great deal. Your dedication and loyalty to the county has been unmeasured. We thank you for your service.
When you have coworkers like that.
You do. You got great staff. You know, I work with many of those daily. I mean, you know, I place several calls out there per day, and you know, they always assisted. You know, because our common goal was to get the inmate the help they needed to get them back on the street so they didn't return.
Carrie's a good one.
Carrie's very good at that.
This is about you.
And so we want to thank you for that, and working through COVID. You know, there's been a lot of transitions out there, and it's been stressful through COVID in prison and PRC, and so we want to thank you for working through those transition periods, and enjoy your retirement.
Oh, I'm gonna.
And many years to you.
I hope.
Christine, you know, your colleagues are crying, and
That's a sign of respect.
that's
Yeah.
a sign of respect. It says a lot.
Yeah.
It says a lot, and obviously the warden's comments were right on target. You know, to be able to make someone who comes into an environment as an inmate scared, angry, confused, how did I get here, etc., and then to just make them feel safe and secure helps them get through what they need to get through and what we're trying to do there. So thank you very much on behalf of the people. Another person who works behind the scenes, the public doesn't see. That's why I wanted you on the camera so they could see you. And that means a lot. It means a lot to us as commissioners, and it means a lot to all the people in the public. So enjoy your retirement. You earned it, and have a good time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember,
Now, Steve Blank retired a while ago.
Yeah.
We'll have to get your colleagues up here.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Yeah.
Don't let those tears go to waste, seriously.
I wouldn't be here without them.
There you go.
They're gonna miss you.
I happen to remember Steve, right, because I played golf with him. He retired and he didn't get any better, so.
No, you didn't. Right in South Carolina now. Yep. Come on, bring it on here.
All right, on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, I don't know if you're going to note that we have another employee retiring. Couldn't make it today. From the prison also, right? That would be Rhonda Ulrich, I believe.
Rhonda Ulrich.
Rhonda Ulrich, right. And her, she was not able to make it today, but our best wishes to Rhonda.
Yes.
And congratulations on her retirement.
Yeah, she's been with the county for, I think, 25 maybe years approximately. And, yeah, she'll, again, like Brad said about Christine's echo with Rhonda, an instrumental part of the county. They provide many years of service, and that expertise will be missed. So we wish her the best in her retirement. Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
All right, moving to reports. Kalen's here to approve the accounts payable cash requirement.
Morning, Caitlin.
Good morning, Commissioners. Presented for your ratification are invoices due through November 16th, 2022 that were paid on November 10th, 2022 in the amount of $1,694,899.78. The breakdown in funding is as follows. 61.84% was funded through the general fund at $1,048,163.53. 19.66% was funded through grants and other sources at $333,146.06. 14.79% was funded through RMS at $250,715.99. And 3.71% was funded through escrow at $62,874.20.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
A second. Any questions or discussion on the current breakdown? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Next, we have a bid opening. Controller should be here to open up the bid for the Williamsport Regional.
She was just here and
Yeah.
she stepped in the hallway.
I think so too. It's regarding the rate as well.
Yeah. Is the controller still in the hallway?
Who's that?
The controller.
Yeah.
Christine, you're up, or Christine. Krista, you're up the bat.
Sorry.
No problem.
The Williamsport Region Relief Well Rehabilitation and Replacement Project for the Borough of South Williamsport and the City of Williamsport. There was only one bidder, the Linde Corporation. Amount submitted was $711,793. And that's it.
Okay.
Million or a thousand?
Yeah.
It's written down as thousand.
I know, I was pretty shocked by that.
Okay, we'll have to review.
Okay.
Yep.
Read that again.
711, 793.
How do you spell that? L-I-N?
DE.
Okay.
Right there, Commissioner, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we know it wouldn't be 711.
Well,
It could be 7 million.
I was thinking maybe it was 7 million, but,
This is very low.
yes,
Yeah. Let's,
we will
Well,
review
let's
the.
not.
Maybe
We only had one bid.
Yeah.
Let's not tell them we're unhappy with it.
Yeah, no.
We'll review.
We'll review and get back to you.
Thank you. Next, we have personnel actions. Jessica?
Good morning, Commissioners.
morning.
Seeking your approval on the following personnel actions. These are conditional offers of employment, subject to the successful completion of a background check and all other employment conditions. For the prison, we have Trevor Campbell, a CO1 relief part-time position, pay rate $20 an hour, not to exceed 1,000 hours in a year, and we're anticipating him to start on November 15th. And also for the prison, Leo McHugh, LPN, full-time replacement at $30 an hour, 80 hours of pay, and anticipated to start on November 28th.
Okay. Motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion or comments? Okay, say aye.
Aye. I will add, though, that although we are receiving applicants for the COs, we're losing them as well to the state and federal programs.
Jess, do you have any update on how we're doing? Ally?
Even.
Do you have an update?
I don't have official numbers,
Okay.
but we're still receiving applicants at a pretty high rate. So even though we have people leaving, we still have a lot of applicants coming in, so that's good.
That's good.
So just so everybody can hear, she said we're continuing to see a decent flow of applicants for our CO positions, and I believe for the LPN positions too.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, for both of those positions. So it seems like the adjustment in salary is helping us to recruit better.
Good.
Yep.
All right, moving to action items, Jess, you have two, 6.1 and 6.2.
Okay. I'm not sure what's best to do first, but the first one is to remove policies because we're going to be replacing it with a compensation policy. So the compensation policy would incorporate the policies that are listed here. So I'm looking to eliminate them. Policy 411, the override policy, 405, partial pay, 400, the job code listing, 401, county pay plans, 402, payroll, 403, direct deposit, 404, payday, 410, reclassification and promotion, 413, clerk to clerk 2 advancement, and 414, interns. And all of those would be in some way incorporated into the compensation policy, which will now become policy 400.
Okay. I would ask a question to the solicitor. Should we remove the current policies before adopting the new policy first?
Yes.
Okay. So make sure we do it like that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Should I continue on?
Yes.
Okay. So 6.2, I'm seeking your approval and adoption of the compensation policy number 400.
Okay, do you want to, let's take action on action item 6.1 first.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the 10 policies, removal of the 10 policies listed in the agenda.
Second?
I'm not sure if I can second this motion at this time.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
Okay. Discussion or questions?
I would, first of all, like to thank, from the bottom of my heart, Jessica, Allison, and everyone in your department. You have worked diligently to put together a policy that is going to help us become more consistent in the hiring process. That's the first step, to getting our compensation policies under control and bringing them up to date. One of the reasons I fear seconding this and for 6.2 is the fact that although you've got input from all the department heads and most of the department heads and most of the elected officials, they did not see the final draft of this compensation policy that we're about to vote on. And Allison brought over what your intentions were, that immediately, once we would vote on this, that you would reach out to those department heads and elected officials and discuss this. Not discuss it, because we'd be making this vote today, okay? And they don't know it yet. There's my concern. I don't want to smack anybody in the face. I want to work as a partnership here with the elected officials and the department heads, so that they can disseminate the information to their workforce. We don't do the operations, they do. And I believe that it should be tabled. I'm not saying that we can't put it into the budget, okay? It's just numbers. Before we vote on this, I think we should have that conversation with them, regardless of whether we think we're going to pass it or not. I mean, I believe that I would pass this compensation. It's the right thing to do. Understanding that, let them disseminate that, because not everybody's going to get a pay raise, okay? And that could upset the workforce, especially when you're dealing with a very competitive workforce out there in the state, okay? And let them explain that what's the next step. They're the leaders of their employees, okay, and departments. And they should be aware of what's about ready to take place and explain the next phase. I may be wrong. I'm just saying, if I was a department head, I would want to know first and then move from there.
Commissioner,
Okay.
so let's go back in time here. The pay scale itself has not been overhauled since 1988. It's 34 years old. It was changed where the step process was eliminated in 2013 or 14, and nothing was put in place. Even though it was a good idea to change that, nothing was put in place at that time. So there was no solution put in to solve the problem, which made that problem exacerbate over the course of time, where you had inconsistencies being developed over the last 8 years. We've had 56 policies that have not been updated since June 24th, 1999. Jess has stepped in. She's already changed a lot of those policies, updated them, where we've voted in the past, which has been tremendous. We have a chance here again to address 10 more. And the department heads were included from the start of this. They were consulted because Jess needed the information to base these decisions that we're going to be looking at today. 3 department heads did not respond. The rest of them did, to get that information. So the department heads are well aware of the fact that we're doing this. It's been talked about for the last 2 years that we've been working on this. The initial thoughts were to do it in an independent agency, which would have cost us $300,000 to $400,000. We decided not to go that route, and we have a route now that starts to address the overall pay scale based on your years of experience and your education, which is what the 1988 system was originally based on and revised. I was here. When I started in '86, it wasn't. And that was one of the big topics, was education and experience. That's why the system was developed in 1988. That's what we're looking at now. This is the very first phase of this overhaul. Because the next part, if this is adopted and put into the budget, Then the next part, next year, is to start to look at individual departments and look at the positions and what the market rate is for those positions going forward. Because right now, when somebody comes to work for the county, they get paid at the bottom of that scale for that position. They may come here with 20 years experience, and they're starting at the very bottom of the scale. So either we're having positions being turned down because they say, well, I can't come work for that. It's too low. Or they leave after a short period of time. They do the job, they leave after a short period of time because someplace else is offering higher. So that's the dilemma we're faced with. This now adjusts it within the pay scale and allows that department head to say, okay, you have 8 years experience, you have this much education, this is where you fall on that pay scale. You don't have to start at the bottom. Because right now, everybody starts at the bottom and starts with the county. So this is the way to address that first part. The next part going into the future and future budgets is what the market pays for that position. Not everyone's going to be addressed here. Or everybody's going to be addressed, but not everybody's going to see an increase in their check. Okay? But it's consistent, it's fair, and it starts moving the process forward. Why it's important to get this done now is because we have limited staff in fiscal that are doing more than they can do. We have Christmas and Thanksgiving coming up where staff takes off. So 6 weeks is really 3 weeks. And we have a budget we have to approve. And this has to go into next year's budget if we approve it. So we don't have the luxury of saying this is June or July, and we can move this back a week or two. I would love the department heads to know this. They're going to know this going forward. Absolutely. You're going to sit down and say, this is what's going on with your department.
Yes.
Now to go discuss with them, because if it's approved today, it goes into effect January 1st.
Right.
If we put it off another week or two, it limits the time that fiscal has to put it in the system. At the same time, we're going to have feedback, both happy people and unhappy people. That's the way it's going to be. You can't please the world. But it's fair and it's consistent. And what our feedback is going to be from the staff isn't going to really change what we've already done in the compensation study. This compensation study is either going to be approved as is, or it's not going to be approved. So, and you put great time into this work. You've taken each employee. I left it upstairs. I showed it to Krista last week. Each employee has what their years of experience is, what their education is, and with the new policy, what the new payout will be, if anything. So that's my thoughts.
So I think the concern you're expressing is that the people who need to take this message are the department heads and the elected officials. And I think Commissioner Becerra is expressing a concern that, do they understand it? I think that they, given the fact that they were asked for input, and that was done at DUB meetings, and it was also done by the Director of HR, Ms. Seagraves. I think, and we've also talked about this. This isn't the first time we've talked about the compensation policy. In fact, last week I stated that 142 people are going to see a positive increase and 45 part-timers are going to be affected, and there are going to be about 200 people who are not going to see an increase as a result of this. But that's not the end of the story. It's not the end of the story. The story continues with efforts we're making to look at job descriptions, some of which are 20 years old, as Commissioner Metzger said, and don't reflect jobs that are being done now, or they are job descriptions that are, out of tune with what the person is doing, and that we're looking to try to make reclassifications based on them. I appreciate, and we always talk to each other in the hall and so forth, and this morning the commissioner and I discussed about tabling this, and I forgot that when we first talked about this last week, I was the one who wanted to push it on today because I was concerned that what you just described, the tight timetable we're on, is going to make it virtually impossible for us to do the things we need to do in fiscal. And we have to be fair to the people in the budget office who are brand new and who are trying to put together a $100 million budget. So given that, I think that we need department heads and elected officials to understand that they need to approach this from a positive perspective. Even if some of the people in their department are not adjusted as a result of this, it doesn't mean that those people that we're not continuing to try to solve the problem. I would hope they would have the maturity and the commitment to the organization to say, look, the commissioners are trying to do something positive here. They're trying to move a system that, as Commissioner Metzger said, has not been changed in a long time. They're trying to move it, and it's like moving an ocean liner. It's different than moving a speedboat. You can't just do a 180-degree turn. But it is going to give us the ability to hire people and offer them compensation reflective of their experience and their education. And it is going to make sure that when those people come in, they're not working alongside someone else who has those years of experience and therefore would be making less, right? We have to do both at the same time. That's the point of this. It's to make sure it's to protect our existing employees with their years of experience and their qualifications. And it's great, and if we give the director a minute, she might be able to explain to us, right?
Yep.
In more detail.
Oh, why don't you do that? Go ahead.
Well, I have another question. Yeah. So, Jessica, there's a range of increases. So the minimum range and the upper range as far as individual pay. So can you mention that?
The yearly changes, the range, you mean?
Right.
Okay. So the range for, is anywhere from $500 a year to up to $12,000 a year.
That's an increase.
Right.
Okay. I think it's very important that we also state that over the last couple years, okay, we've had shortages of the workforce. Okay, we've had budgeted $25, $27 million, and we felt $2 million below that. So we've had a decrease of 9.25% in our pay for the past couple years. That's very important to recognize. And if you look at the fact that with implementation of the first compensation policy, that's going to be somewhere around the 390,000 range. $395,000 is what the first phase of this is going to cost the taxpayers in salary adjustments. Okay, just from the compensation policy. Okay, and then we can, without getting to all the department heads, all the employees, we can assume, or we're projecting that we could have as high as a 700, 800,000 additional thousand put on that from the second phase. And I think this is important and it's critical to the employees of this county that, I don't care what anybody says, when you're told that it's going to cost you $500 to $1.1 million in the compensation study, that's a significant amount of money. And their results wouldn't come back until about 8 months. We're putting it upon new employees. Basically, you have been here a year, right? And the whole team, is gone except for one person, right? And so this is a significant task. So we can't get it all done at once. We can't get it done tomorrow. And the employees are just going to have to understand that. I don't know what else to say. But those increases off the first two phases is 3.5% overall. Okay? And we're struggling to get people into this county because of the market forces out there. So you take the 9.25% that we paid, this is how we're planning on paying for this compensation. Do you have anything else?
Well, I think we need to listen to Jason's point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have a PowerPoint, Jessica?
I don't have a
Okay,
PowerPoint.
basically, when you explained to us how we pay for this.
And
I
also the whole policy, the 1% for
I didn't bring that
experience.
information, the
that's okay.
budget information.
No, okay, we can discuss that during the
So
budget process.
policy highlights, as the commissioner said, the idea is that we would be paying employees, all employees, new hires and our current staff, based on their years of experience and education. So employees in regards to experience would receive 1% bump from the base pay for every year of experience that they have, up to 12%. In addition to that, we would give additional percentage for their education. So they would get 1% for trade school and or a license certification, applicable to the position. There would be 2% for an associate's degree on top. These are all on top of the job description requirements. So 2% for an associate's degree, 3% for a bachelor's degree, 4% for a master's degree or above. And then in addition, the policy would also eliminate the part-time scale. So we've currently had a part-time scale that had a 10%, I think, lower rate than the full-time scale. And I was never really sure why that was the case, considering the cost for that employee is actually less to the county, considering that we aren't paying for their benefits. So we will now just have one scale for all employees, both full-time and part-time. And I just wanted to explain the process that I went through. So I reached out in July of this year to all our department heads and our elected officials to ask them to send me their job descriptions, the job description requirements, what is the education requirement, what is the experience requirement, and then also to give me that information for all of their employees. So, what level of education does your employee have and how many years of experience do they have? We use that to do the calculations based on the policy that I just explained, and that's the information that was provided to the commissioners. As Commissioner Metzger said, we did have 3 department elected officials that did not participate with this process, so I do not have their employees' information as part of this assessment. As part of the policy, there's some employees that will receive an adjustment, and then there are some employees that will not receive an adjustment. Also, this policy would not apply to any of our union employees, as their collective bargaining units would and agreements would dictate that. And as has been described, this is the first step. It's taken the county quite some time to get where we are. There's multiple issues, I believe, in regards to the compensation issues here at the county. Each of them is a cost to the taxpayer, and so it's not something that we can do all at one time. Typically, organizations are managing compensation needs on a yearly basis. That's my long-term goal, is that we're looking at the market for every position yearly and recommending adjustments incrementally instead of huge adjustments all at one time. So in the future, we will determine, I have a list of reclassifications that have been requested throughout the budget process and outside of the budget process. I have asked the commissioners if we can review those, determine what we will be addressing for next year, what we would need to push off potentially for 2024, and so on. And as been described, I have every intention of meeting with all of our department heads before anything is communicated to our employees. And that has always been the plan. We would not ever move out on communicating information about an employee's compensation before consulting with the department heads. I also plan to, once we figure out all of the potential adjustments, whether it be through the compensation policy, a potential reclassification, or the county's general increase that is announced, I will be providing all of that information in a letter to each employee so that they can see what adjustments they received and what their new pay rate will be. And all of these changes would be effective for the first pay in the new year. So again, with the limited staff that we have in the budget and finance team, I'm trying to kind of do this all at one time so that it's less of a burden to them doing it in multiple phases. So
yeah, Jess, it's important that everyone understands that as we look down at these numbers, that we plug it into the budget.
Right.
And not do it all at one time, and see if we can afford it, first of all. And, we've had a lot of people retire, people are coming in at a lower rate. We have positions that are still open, so we've saved a lot of revenue that way. But again, as we're saving revenue, can we afford that revenue towards these increases?
Right.
And at this point, we can.
Right.
But in the future, as we look at the market studies of those positions, then we have to look and see what we can move out on and what we can't move out on, but to plan it in the budget going into each year.
Right. And so what I've experienced since I started at the county is that I receive on a daily basis requests for compensation adjustments. I'll be honest, it literally consumes most of my day every day. And to be honest, there's a lot of other great things that our team wants to accomplish for this county in regards to services that the Human Resources Department can provide. Obviously, compensation is huge, and I've spent lots of time over the last 11 months working on it. But I think moving forward, after we've made some of these initial changes, I think we have to work towards, working through the budget process and managing reclassifications through that time frame through the budget process. So that's another piece that I have added to the policy is that, as we work through these last couple months of this year, into next year, we need to start managing this through the budget process. And I think that'll be the most effective way for us to do it.
One good point. We talked about the ranges. Commissioner Starr asked the ranges 450 to 12,000.
Right.
And I looked at that 12,000. You got to be out of your mind.
Yeah.
But what we did is we took a step further and looked at that position and looked at the market rate of what that position pays in Lycoming County. It's from 35,000 to 55,000. In our county, this person with the new adjustment will be at the bottom of that range for the market rate.
Right.
So they've been grossly underpaid by the county for years.
Right.
So in a case like that, when we're trying to hire a person like that and we are, and her increase is 12,000, but it means that we were probably offering 30 or 40% below what the market is.
Right.
You have to basically go through bringing in all these people until you find someone who's willing to say, I'll take that job for whatever reason. Maybe they don't need the job as much. Maybe they don't have the expenses someone else has. But what it means is that we spend an enormous amount of time trying to look for a needle in a haystack. Not a needle in a haystack. And then, by the way, this isn't to take away from that person, who I'm sure is great. Not a needle in a haystack who's a superstar, but a needle in a haystack of who's willing to take compensation 40% below what they can make.
Below the market.
Yeah, it's not a way to run a railroad, right? Because what we're doing is we are setting ourselves up for having chronic shortages. And the problem, when we don't pay compensation, and I totally appreciate what Commissioner Masser is saying about the increased cost. And let me just say, it's $395,000 for the increase for these changes.
Right.
And then it's $907,000 for the proposed increase to the 3.5% across the board. The total increase in payroll is $1,302,000. That's 5.02% of our payroll cost. And his point, and all of our points, is that's recurring every year, right? That's going to happen every year. It's going to continue. We'll have ebb and flow because some people at the higher pay will retire, right? But I think in some ways, in this environment of inflation, to get through with a 5.02% increase in our labor costs is doing pretty decently, is what I'm suggesting. And I'm not, to all the folks out there who are struggling trying to pay property taxes, believe me, I am not minimizing the struggle and so forth. But at the same time, when we don't have people in a department, when we lose people, I'm going to give you a perfect example. Right now, we have a grant from the EPA. They gave us $1 million to do loans to clean up brownfields. We've had that program for a couple of years. We haven't been able to implement it fully because we didn't have the staff, because we've gone through 20 people in 3 years in our planning department. 20 people. So it means that someone gets hired, our existing staff who are skilled, who are knowledgeable, train that person. They've been doing their own work, and they've been doing that absent person's work. So now they struggle, they scramble back to get to their own work. The person stays for 6 or 8 months. finds a better job, moves on. Now the person who's the skilled person who's staying with us has to do their own work, plus do that person's work, and then try to find another person and then train them and do it over and over again. It's counterproductive, and it actually hurts us, because that $1 million EPA grant, the EPA said to us, listen, if you don't put that money out in the field within the next year, we're taking it back. Right? They're taking it back because they've got a country with 50 states who have brownfields. And if we're not going to put the money to use in Lycoming County, they're going to find a county that can put the money to use. So when you hear us talking about this and proposing these increases, it's not because we don't understand the plight of our taxpayers, but we also understand that it's counterproductive to us to churn through employees as if, you know, you're just buying widgets or something. It's not working. But those are the numbers. It's 1,302,191. It's 5.02%. And I think it's going to give us the tools. And here's the other part. And one of the reasons why I think we need to do this today is because there's nothing, as my mother used to say to us, mañana, mañana. She asked us to do something. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. Mañana is Spanish for tomorrow, right? Or Italian, I'm not sure which. Spanish. But my point is, we've been talking to the employees about this, and it's phase one, and it's going to help us move out and give them some hope. I know we have one of the folks in the audience here who's going to be leaving us, and we're sorry to see that. But we are competing with other organizations.
Yeah, I want to bring up 2 points. When I started 3 years ago, I looked at the salaries overall. The average county salary of an employee, not the benefits, but the salary was $40,000. Now you take 8% of that out for their pension and their taxes, and they're either trying to raise a family on it, or they're trying to, you know, they're not getting rich. They're not getting rich. And now we have 9% inflation, and it continues to go up. The other point I want to point out, which I've pointed out numerous meetings, is just pointed out a school board meeting in Williamsport. We are the lowest taxing body of the 3 taxing bodies. The county doesn't raise taxes every year. School districts do. Municipalities do it every couple of years. So you look at your tax dollar, school districts, where you're at, probably somewhere between, I'd say 54 to 58 cents of the tax dollar. Your municipalities, another quarter of that, and we're slightly below that, about 21, 22 cents of your tax dollar. So as we make these adjustments, we have to look at our own budget, and we have to be fair, obviously, mainly to the taxpayer, because they're paying the bills. We have to honor that first, but at the same time, we have to get the job done. And if we don't have people to get these jobs done, like you just talked about the Brownsfields, that's $1 million grant. If we don't get that done, we have to get that $1 million back.
And what's the implication of not doing it? It means that we have a piece of property in this county that we can't put, it might be an industrial property, and we have a manufacturer who wants to move into the community, right? We can't put them in that property because it's polluted. It has to be cleaned up. So now you either have to say to an employer, you got to front the money to clean it up yourself, and are they going to do that here if they can go to another county and get a loan from the EPA to do it, and so forth?
Well,
By the way,
typically, it's ready. Okay, when we receive brownfield grants, we already have a project designated. All right, so I don't understand how we're losing money.
No, we
because
don't.
we haven't been able to put
Why?
the program.
We don't have projects designated for that money yet.
There's no program.
So then why did we apply?
We have a lot of projects that are eligible. Now we have to reach out and start the pre-application. We're doing a pre-application process to identify where that money can go. We have a lot of phase ones that have been done, and now we're reaching out and getting projects to people and projects to apply for the pre-application
When
process.
we did the Brownsfields, for example, Brodart, we knew what the phase 1s, 2s were. We knew who it was going to. We knew delineated the area I mean, it was already planned out.
I know, the problem is that the staff can't go, we've had to put it on the shelf because we didn't have anybody who could do the legwork necessary to solicit and process them. We put it on the shelf and then we put it back out there and we're trying to get it back out there, but the point is the EPA has basically given us a deadline. I want to mention the money that, so, and I think Commissioner Massaro, you mentioned this. In 2021, we budgeted $25,620,000 for wages. We actually spent $23,774,000. So there's $1,845,000 we didn't spend. In 2022, we budgeted $25,919,000. We're projected to spend $22,915,000, so we're going to have $3 million that we didn't spend. Now, this doesn't mean you go out and spend the money. That's not the point. But part of the reason we didn't spend the money is because we have 50 vacancies at the prison, and we've got people working forced overtime, and we have people doubling up on jobs and trying to do 2 jobs, which isn't really fair to the workforce either. And we all understand that. So the point is, in the short term, we actually have a little bit of a cushion financially, close to $5 million, to help us ease through this process.
I'm just going to add a couple other things. Okay, you made a comment that grossly underpaid by 30%. And I would say that that's an anomaly. I would also say that not every position is grossly underpaid here in the county. Okay, just through the compensation study policy, we found out that only a total of 185 or just under 200 people are going to get an adjustment under the first phase, underneath the compensation policy adjustment. Then the second phase will add more, because you're looking at changing in the first 2 phases, only affecting about 31% of the employees. I mean, in the first phase. So that's an important point. And for everyone out there, and this is, we value our employees. We don't want to lose you, okay? But it is a competitive market. And the issue is, it has to always be relative to affordability. When we have people that make 80, 90, 110,000, typically they spend according to their pay. We get that. It's hard to believe that somebody, a millionaire or an actor who made hundreds of millions of dollars, is broke today, right? They spend what they make. That's the way it is. Okay, we're in the reverse. We have to look at our taxpayers as a whole. We have to look at the average income, and we must hire to that. So, Commissioner, I understand the value of having Cadillacs and Lexuses, but we have to be relative to our income, our taxation, and our surrounding counties of what they're paying as well. So, I want high position, people. I want them to be compensated fairly, and we need to bring in good, solid, and educated people for that. But on the other hand, we just can't always afford a Cadillac. And so when we see certain people jumping to other positions, whether it's the state or federal governments or private sector, where are they going? What is that market? I can't pay the same as somebody pays in Philadelphia. I can't do that. Or I just can't, because their standard of living is much higher. And benefits and fringes are very important, okay? It's the second highest cost in our budget. Fringes, benefit, it comes to pension obligation. And I believe we're rich in that. And we have to make sure that we account for that as well. It's not just the pay.
So can I just offer this thought? And this is very important. We're not trying to compete with Philadelphia. And we're not trying to have people drive Cadillacs. And I appreciate your comparison, but I just want that to be. But I think that the prison is a great example because it's been so glaring for us. We're almost at the point of crisis where we would have to actually take prisoners and send them to another facility. And we knew that if we had to do that, it was going to end up costing us $70 a day times 80 times, what was the number we came up with?
It was,
$150,000 a month,
No, it was
$80,000 a month.
It was more than that.
It was a lot of money,
Yeah.
right?
How many do you have out?
So you say 70
13?
times 80 a block times 30 days in a month. I was going to run $168,000 a month times a year, $2,016,000 a year.
For what?
If we had to move a block of 80 prisoners.
Yeah.
It's going to cost us $2 million a year. So my point is I want the public to understand that the only reason I use that as an example is because it's easier to quantify. It's harder to quantify the IS department when we are not able to attract people and we have issues with departments not able to be as efficient as they should be because they don't have the proper IS.
I want to make a point about department heads. And
Yeah.
so we look at our budget. We get roughly just under 40 million in tax revenue. When you look at our revenues, they're about $105,000. Now, how we get that extra revenue? We get it because our department heads are going out looking for grants, looking for opportunities to bring those monies to the county. If they don't bring those monies to the county, those monies are going elsewhere. They're going to another county or another state. And due to their expertise of acquiring those grants and bringing them to us, that increases our revenue, which we already know our expenses are higher than our revenue because of these capital projects. We don't get that revenue, we can't even begin to talk about those capital projects over the next couple of years. So your buildings go to, they dilapidate, everything goes downhill. So it's important that we compensate those people that have the information or have the expertise to bring that revenue to our county. We
Now,
have to compensate them fairly.
Just to make a point, okay, you talk about 2 million. We sent out 13 female inmates.
Right.
It'll be about 27,000 a month.
Right. Good
Okay.
13.
And we have 19 federal inmates to offset that.
Right.
Well, block would be 80 inmates.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but we
It's
didn't
different.
go shut down a block.
Yeah, we didn't go down that road, but we're close.
Let's, to your point, Commissioner Metzger, we know we've had a crisis in our budget department, budget and finance. We're down 3 positions. We're not doing the work we should be doing with the EIP program because we realized 7 years ago that the way counties get money out of the state is by being in the EIP program. It's now called the Strategic Management Program. And that's how we got money that we paid for various things. And we found out that Chester County and these other counties are getting boatloads of state money by being part of that. We've not been able in the last 3 years to do the work that we should be doing with the Strategic Management Program, which would bring money from the state. And the reason we haven't been able to do it is because we don't have the staff we need in budget and finance to be able to, make sure things are. So I think that that's a good point, that to continue to get those grants. And I think it's.
Otherwise they go elsewhere.
Yeah, otherwise they go elsewhere, which makes sense, right? When the EPA is saying to us they're going to send it somewhere else, it's not because they don't like us, it's because they want the money out on the street doing what it's supposed to do, so.
Yeah, how do you improve your county? You be proactive. And these people are proactive and bringing them in that extra, $70 million that helps make up the revenue.
Well, to my point, this is a good conversation. I think we can come to a general consensus. It's just the what comes first, and that's the reason I brought it up. I think we discussed a tremendous amount here in this meeting, right? But do you think that 2% of the employees have heard this meeting? I don't think so.
Well, as for Jess then, if it's approved, for her to sit down with department heads and say, this is what it is, go share it. And it will be effective January 1st. and be incorporated in our new budget going out so that the, and in that way, we do not need the phone ringing every day talking about adjusting people's salaries. We can say the next phase is the market study. We will have that in next year's budget.
But before the market study, there's some reclassification.
But you also have, like, one of the arguments I heard this morning was, God, Social Security's getting 8 to 11%.
Yeah.
All right? How are my employees gonna take that? If you don't give that? Whoa. These people don't work anymore. I'm not saying I agree with giving that much of an increase in Social Security, but, they don't have the ability to go out there and work, or work another part-time job, or whatever you gotta do to survive. It's not going to be easy, and we can't correct it just here at the county level.
And just right, I mean, the Social Security people put into, right, it's not an entitlement program. Well, actually, it depends on how you use entitlement. It is not a poverty program. It's a program paid for by the participants and the employers jointly, right? Because the goal is to make sure that people have some base underneath them when they retire. So, and so I assume that the people who are running the program have looked at the effects of doing the 8 or 9% on the demographics and so on.
Print more money. That's what they do.
That's what the feds do.
Okay.
Okay. Jess, you like to add anything else? Okay, we have Touches on the phone from the Department of Public Safety. He wanted to make a comment.
Good morning, Commissioners. I just want to state, as a department head, I provided input on our staff here and have worked with Jess on this policy. So it's my belief that department heads are aware this is coming and understand that this is the first step in correcting the years that have went untouched. And acknowledge that there are individual positions that you will be asked to make adjustments to in the upcoming near months here. But as far as moving forward with this, I was shared with the fact that it's going to be like 182 employees and the cost of $395,000. But what has not been shared with me yet is, employees A, B, and C are going to get adjustments, and D, E, and F are not. But I feel like this really needs approved before I can go to an employee and say that, because if I go to employee A and say, hey, you're set up to get X% based on your education, years of experience, and then this doesn't happen, how does that make that employee feel, or how does it make the county look? I just feel like the approval needs to come before Jess can share that with me, or we can jointly share it with our staff. I just feel like the approval needs to happen before we can go out to the staff.
Okay, thank you, Hudge.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hudge.
By the way, just so everyone knows, 142 full-time and 45 part-time, right? And it's important. Part-time, we like to attract part-time people. We don't have to pay pension. We don't have to take on the liability of health care. So pay them a little bit more, pay them at least what they're making if they're full-time.
And they give us flexibility.
They give us flexibility to fill in. We saw that, which is why we're now trying to hire part-time correctional officers.
We've gotten a couple already at the prison, so that's going to help fill in those gaps where our current staff are being mandated. So it helps with flexibility.
I want to put this in context for a minute. I know we've talked about this a lot, but I think it's important for the public to understand. You mentioned that the compensation policy hadn't been changed since
1988.
Things have changed a lot in the last 10, 20 years. I mean, for starters, think about all the people who were 50. They're now 70. They're not in the workforce anymore. On top of that, our population has gone down from 120,000 to 112,000 in the last 20 years, our county population. So that means we lost a whole bunch of people who might have been of working age. They're having smaller families. We know it's repopulation is what we have to be looking at. And repopulation includes attracting people to our county for a job at the county. Right? We're not going to pay them what they pay in Philadelphia, but if we can pay a competitive, decent wage, we can draw people from the suburbs and from the other parts of the state that are overpopulated, that are quite frankly suffering from all sorts of traffic jams and pollution and everything else, bring them here. But we have to at least be in the game. This puts us in the game. And frankly, we haven't been in the game, and I think that's part of our problem. Now, having said that, there's one last thing I want to say. Our managers also need to look at the job we do managing, how we treat people. People can be making a lot of money, but if they're not treated, and that starts from the top with the commissioners on down. And we have to look at ourselves too. Because if we don't treat people with respect, I don't care how much money you pay, they're not going to stay. That's just the absolute truth. So I think part of our future work has to be doing management training and making sure that all our managers are treating people. And you know what? If you need to do some training with us commissioners, no, I'm dead serious. It wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt for us to have that too.
Absolutely.
But we have to be doing that because the money alone is not going to solve the problem. You know, there are many people who have worked for low wages because they feel a sense of being able to contribute and be respected. So I hope we'll look at that too.
Absolutely.
We were up at Wisteria Lane here a week and a half ago for a ribbon cutting on some new homes being built in the community. And I spoke to the reporter up there, and I've been echoing this since COVID, that after 9/11, there was a good part of Manhattan went to the Poconos because they didn't want to deal with the crime, they didn't want to deal with terrorism and what was going on in the city. And you saw an explosion of people in the Poconos. And after COVID, we're seeing the same. As we talk to employers, people miss their families. Kids that moved away, they miss their families, they miss their grandparents, they miss their parents. They want their kids to grow up in a community where they don't have to pay high taxes, they don't have to worry about what's going on in the cities, they don't have to worry about lockdowns, and kids, you know, maybe not going to school and doing school virtual. So as these professionals are looking to come back home, if we can provide that housing and a competitive wage position job, they'll return. They'll return. That's how we're going to be able to grow the population back, by making Lycoming County more attractable to those people, so they won't leave. And that's the goal. Are we going to be able to do that with everybody? No. But we have a part that we can play in that, and we're doing it now with housing, with our housing initiatives program, $2 million this year, $2 million next year to help build new homes and assist with that. It's starting to take place. That was 20 homes up in western end of Williamsport. We're going to be meeting with our developers as they put their projects out to help build the housing stock. We talked about the mall, which we're going to talk about here again shortly. And you know, those are the things as you build the communities and build it back better. I don't want to use that phrase. That was a bad phrase.
You could use it. It's okay. We can build back better.
No, it's a bad phrase. I won't.
It's your phrase. I think I'm going to use that. As Commissioner Betsky said, let's build back better.
I've been saying it in the negative phrase for the last 48 hours. So
you're off the board.
It just flew out of my mouth. The way we can improve our community to help make it vibrant is to bring those people into our communities, because the goal here is to increase the tax base, not put this tax burden on fewer and fewer people. Because one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to move, which we've seen that thousands and thousands of people moving to Florida, and where they feel that they can have freedom again. And if we can provide that housing, if we can provide those jobs, it's going to bring the people to this area. And that's what our goal is, to increase that tax base and not to put that burden on. Because we can't put it on the same people. We'll have to either cut services or because I keep saying, raising taxes is not an option in today's world, especially with inflation. Next year is going to be very bleak. I disagree with our president when he says he doesn't want to change nothing. When 3 out of 4 people in this country say they're going down the wrong road, you better look in the mirror. And the bottom line is we need to get things back on track so that people can government's got to get out of the way of the businesses, let them be able to operate on their own and get regulation out of this so that we can start to be vibrant once again.
You know what's interesting about what you just said? Some of the young people who have left the county have actually moved out of the county. Some of the young people we've lost, employees we've lost.
Yeah, they moved out of the county.
They've literally moved out of the county.
Yeah.
And that's actually the reverse of what we're trying to accomplish.
I've had a lot of friends move to Florida. I mean,
well, I mean right in the area.
Yeah,
they've left.
I've had personal friends move to Florida because they're tired of what's going on in Pennsylvania, and what's going on locally. And it's sad because, I mean, just 50,000 people, New York City alone, 50,000 people moved in the month of August. 1 month. They've lost 500,000 people in that city.
Right.
That went south, either South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia.
Right, but what I'm saying is that because we were not competitive with our wages.
I think we're off
Yeah,
track.
we're off track.
Well, no, these people, these employees, these young employees have actually left Lycoming
I
County.
got on a tangent. I apologize.
Well, that's okay.
I've been on
Center
a tangent.
County,
I've
they
been
moved
on
to
a
Center
tangent.
County,
I've
New
been on a
York,
tangent
lower
since
New York
Tuesday
State.
night. Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Can I have a recap on all that?
No.
Camera was down. Caught one thing on tape though.
There's a motion on the
It's
table.
like a swear word. I apologize for swearing. Okay.
There's a motion on the table.
There's a motion on the table, and I second it. All in favor of 6.2 to approve and adopt the policy 400 compensation policy.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Commissioner Chairman, there's a motion to table.
Oh, did he?
No.
He didn't motion to table it.
Oh, you didn't make a
I
motion?
just didn't make the
Oh, I
second.
thought- oh, I'm
You made a
sorry.
motion?
Yeah.
I second it for
Gotcha,
discussion.
okay, sorry,
We've
my
had
apologies. That's
plenty-
what we had to
We've
table.
had plenty of discussion.
Yeah,
So,
Okay.
quite too much.
all right.
And so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Nay.
Nay, so we'll carry 2-1.
Thank
And
you,
I
Commissioners.
say nay, not because I disagree with the compensation study. I think that we should have informed our leaders first.
Did we vote on action 6.1? I don't recall.
Yes.
We did, okay, that was,
Thank you.
thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Okay, 6.3, Maya.
All right, moving forward, I have the next two items. The first item, 6.3, it's vote to approve the JCJC Juvenile Probation Services Grant Award. This is the annual grant need that the Juvenile Probation Office gets. This year it's $242,417. And this is to help offset the personnel costs within his office.
Okay, a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Now second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So carried.
The next item I have for you is to approve the U.S. Department of Homeland Security State Homeland Security Grant Program Agreement. PEMA is awarding $512,280 in federal funds to subrecipients, and it is a partnership, and in that, there's several counties, including Lycoming, but it's Bradford, Clinton, Columbia, Montour, Northumberland, Potter, Sullivan, Tioga, and Union.
Okay, motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second, but I make a comment.
Yes.
Do we know what we're gonna spend that money on?
Yeah, so when you do the
Okay.
grant application, you have to, yes, put in the project.
Thank you.
Again, another example of obtaining a grant to get something done. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 The next item is Allison Herman, 6.6.
You
Allison.
did the Justice Assistant Smart Program.
Yeah. Allison, before you start, we were saddened yesterday to learn that you're going to be leaving us. We want to thank you for your short time here. You've done great work, fantastic work. We want to thank you on behalf of the commissioners in the county.
Thank you very much. I have loved working here.
Yeah, we really wish you well in your future employment.
Where are you dying?
New York State.
New York State.
Not New York City, just over the border, right?
Yeah.
Within driving distance of here.
Yes. Although I haven't actually resided in the county yet, which is part of the move.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm here presenting an amendment to an Act 13 mini grant contract between Lycoming County and the Lycoming County Softball Association for the Elk Park Restoration Project. This amendment corrects an initial omission of playing field resurfacing in the scope of work.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So carried.
And our thanks to those volunteers, amazing what they've done with Elm Park with a small amount of money that we've given them. They have turned that into an entity that has brought people into the county and
It's brought people from multiple states for tournaments, events, and has helped, especially during COVID, a lot of those people stayed in the hotels.
Yep.
While they were playing ball up there. It's helped the local softball leagues and associations, and we want to thank the board up there that took this upon themselves and kept it going, and it's doing great things up there.
Don Noviello and Joe Tedesco and all the
Jeff
folks.
Tedesco.
Yeah, and who is the man who's about 75 now who took care of the ball?
Donnie Phillips. took care
Donnie
of it for
Phillips,
years.
for 50 or 60
Yeah, I
years
think
on his
I
own,
think I
volunteered.
think he passed away.
He did.
I think so. And he was a great asset up there. He was there every day, every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 6.7 and 6.8. I believe Hutch is filling in for Beth.
Okay, Hutch.
I'm actually here.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. It was
Okay.
initially supposed to be Hutch, but I'm here.
Okay.
6.7 is for Skyhook. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
This is a two-part amendment for Skyhook. The first part of this is for $8,994. It's additional fees that we incurred for the Hughesville Tower site, for the electricity that needed to be ran to the tower site. It's because of the distance that PP&L has to run and bury the new lines that are going up the mountain. The second part of it is for $9,955, which is, we're having, while the trench is open for PP&L, we're having conduits put in and some pull strings so that in the future when we lease property or when we lease space on that tower site and in the building, that we have the ability to run people's fiber lines and such up the mountain without having to reopen ground and have that expense, or they don't have that expense. We can actually charge more for the leased property for that. And that's at the cost of $9,955.
Okay, a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth, you can go ahead and take 6.8 and 6.9 as well then.
Okay. 6.8 is for an amendment to the agreement for Nokia in the amount of $22,426.50, and this is for changes to the antenna to the microwave. This is for the hardware that's going to go on the tower sites for the microwave, the radio microwave. The initial quotes that we received, the company cannot produce them in a good amount of time. They're like 8 months out. So we had to change the vendor. And the change of the vendor increased the price by the $22,426.50.
Okay, a motion?
I'll move to approve.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried.
And the third item for me, 6.9, is an extension or amendment to the agreement with Williams Pipeline, which is, this is an amendment, excuse me, to this agreement. It's where we have some radio hardware. This is a no-cost agreement between us and them. We still need to have our radio hardware at their location until the new radio project is fully functional, and then we'll remove it. So this is just an extension.
Okay. Motion?
I'll move to approve.
No second.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, the next item, 6.10, Jason Yorks.
Jason, you with us?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Commissioner, 6.10 is the approval of consent assessment civil penalty with the Department of Environmental Protection. Basically, you have heard me refer to them as the NOV, Notice of Violation. In September 28th, the Department of Environmental Protection Solid Waste Team visited RMS and conducted a waste audit, and trash net as they refer to it. And our one transfer trailer had seed beads around the door seal from carrying waste, and the NOV carries up to a $1,500 fine. I was able to negotiate down to $750. Seeking your approval.
Motion.
I'll move to approve.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is you again, Jason.
Commissioner, 611 is the approval of the 2023 Ford F-550 chassis from Sunbury Motors. This is a PA CoStarz purchase in the amount of $61,160. This is the chassis that we will be putting a bucket on the back so that our electricians and maintenance staff are able to do elevated work out in parking lots or on buildings and so forth. And this is part of our 2022 budget.
May I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All fair side?
Aye.
And then our last item is with Mark.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Today we seek your approval for the CoStar's purchase of security hardware for RMS. Purchase will be made with our vendor partner Integra One for the amount of $28,228.24 and will provide a redundant pair of devices for continuity of operations. The purchase will be completed with 2022 budgeted funds.
Okay.
And this is for security hardware.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All fair side? Aye. So carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next commissioner comment?
You have anything? We want to express our deepest sympathy to Joe Kantz, Snyder County Commissioner. Last weekend, he was involved in a farming accident with his father, where his father lost his life. And our prayers and thoughts are with him through this very difficult time as they have suffered the loss of his father.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
I want to thank the employees out there that have hung in with us, and we're very loyal and continue to do a great job under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. We have a number of those people that could have jumped the ship and went into other places, you know. But there's a higher purpose and love of the community. Not that everybody does it, but they're special people. Not all of us would do that. So I want to thank them.
Thank all of our folks who were there on Tuesday, our poll workers, our judges, our staff, everyone who made Election Day happen. And hats off to our voter services department. Other counties ran short on ballots. That's always an embarrassing situation, and we didn't do that. We had those ballots there, and we thank them for a great job they did.
You know, Forrest did say on election night, I wish anybody that felt that our elections were full of fraud or whatnot that would have come there to observe what took place, because it is quite amazing when you see all the people that were there to make the system work. I can't speak for other counties. I can just speak for ours. You know, hoorah.
Absolutely. And an update on the coroner. We were down yesterday and met with some of the members of the airport authority. Looked at some property and one of the buildings over there. It was a very good discussion. And again, we continue to our discussions with them and looking at other options with the coroner. So we're working on this daily.
And we're continuing also to work, try to see if Don Lundy is someone we can work with. We'll look at all our options and see what the costs are and see what the best option is. But we are working on it.
Okay. And again, tomorrow's Veterans Day. We just ask you to continue to honor our vets, and we thank them so much for their service.
You do have one more
Yes.
comment. This one's from Jeff Will Try. It says, are county employees able to seek treatment through the PA Department of Health run medical marijuana dispensaries. If so, great. If not, when?
Okay, I'm not sure about that, we'll have to research that. Okay. Any other comments?
Well, I think they would do like any citizen. It would have to get a doctor's prescription.
I would agree. I
Right.
don't think the insurance restricts it. It's more of an approved.
Approved by the medical doctor.
Yeah.
Right, right. We don't have anything to do with it.
No, I don't
To
think so.
to the constituent.
It's not our decision.
Right, it's a medical decision.
Yeah. Okay. Another comment? Yeah, Jerry? Good to see you.
Thank you.
And your wife.
Well, first, let me say that I very much appreciate your tribute to the veterans. As a Vietnam vet, I really appreciate that. And I'm married a military brat, so.
Thank you for your service.
I read in the Sun Gazette that you were interested in public comment on the idea of working with a developer to help revitalize and deal with the Lycoming Mall. So I think you each have a copy of my comments.
Yep.
Yep.
And so I won't take the time to go through all of that, but I do have a perspective that when I was executive director of Lycoming County Planning for 38 years, we operated with the idea that Black Friday had to be accommodated in parking capacity for the mall. And I'm jumping down to the latter part of my written comment there. But so as I look today with online shopping, all that big parking area is unnecessary. Now, we did have the vision to, in the latter part of some of that development, like with the cinema, require a porous pavement and the stormwater pond. And that's very important as it helps tie into compliance of Lycoming County with US EPA regs and the Chesapeake Bay Commission requirements for the Susquehanna drainage. But the whole package needs to be addressed comprehensively, and your planning capabilities here in the county are excellent for that. But I think mixed use, a variety of ways to reuse all those the store capacity in the mall. It doesn't have to be commercial. It can be mixed use. It could be a combination of elderly housing. You know, the interior, and I made it a point to go down last week and walk the interior of the mall. That would be a very safe, pleasant environment with a little bit of tune-up for elderly to be able to walk and not have to worry about the weather or traffic. So flexibility is a key here on reuse of that mall. We're just not buying in the way that we did way back in those years. So we don't need quite as much of that commercial space. I'll ask you to read that for yourself if do you have questions of my reasoning?
No, I've read this and it's good. We do know that this will be a mixed use from what we understand.
Mm-hmm.
It will never be a traditional mall
Right.
like it once was. These are different times. There'll be a mixed use. They're in discussions now with different franchises and businesses, but they can't sign any leases because they don't own the property yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think once they own the property, we'll see some of that stuff being advertised. They're going to be here in weeks to come to talk about their plans.
Good.
And at that point, I think we'll know a little bit more. Again, without owning the property, they can't divulge who wants to come in, their leases, but they said it'll be a mixed use. Could be some housing, could be some retail, like a mixed.
Right. I had a brief chat with Shannon before your meeting, and you've got a planning staff that's very capable of engaging with a developer or potential buyer to explore all kinds of options.
You know what's interesting is, I believe the zoning there is under the control of Muncie Township.
If it wasn't last night, I think it's tonight that they're gonna be adopting their new ordinances. And so the first of the year, I believe, we're gonna be meeting with them Monday about the transfer.
They're not in the partnership anymore,
Yeah.
the zoning partnership. But hopefully they'll still take these comments in the spirit they're intended.
Well, we would still have the opportunity to review, and obviously the county has a vested interest in this. So we've reached out to the township to make sure that the transition goes smoothly.
Absolutely.
And Shannon, I would invite you to share my written, I gave Shannon a copy.
Yeah.
So share my comments with the township.
Okay.
Yeah. But the important thing is, these developers want to see the property grow and be prosperous.
Yeah.
And not a write-off or a
Right.
black eye on the county where it just sits there and continues to be unoccupied or very little occupancy. And that helps grow the tax base down there.
Absolutely.
You know.
And it's an asset for the county if we could just optimize its value.
And it's in our growth corridor.
Mhm.
It's just critical. Yeah. So thank you for taking the time to walk it.
Yeah, thanks
And your
for
expertise.
writing up your
Yeah.
thoughts, and we'll definitely get them to the developers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Again, thank you for your leadership, not just on this, but overall.
Thank you.
I mean, it's been quite a meeting.
Yeah, you came to a long one.
These are interesting times, Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are. So thank you. Okay, anything else?
Nothing else on this end.
Okay, we've completed our, oh, I'm sorry, we have two more public comments. Yes, I apologize. Everyone's Tom or Scott?
No, go ahead. Go for it, Tom.
Tom? Then Scott.
She might have something to say, so.
Okay, yeah. Whoever wants to speak. Go ahead, thank you, Tom.
Well, I was at the polls Tuesday, poll watcher. It was fun. So, you know, I gotta make sure I put in for the poll worker on the county site instead of going through the state. I just know do the job with the state. I don't know. But I just, you know, I just think it's a great thing, great process, community event and everything. Of course, not happy with the results for Pennsylvania, but we just have to learn how to work with people we don't agree with. And maybe they can be more like Rick a little more and, you know, and have a little more rapport.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Although you might be an enemy, but.
He's not.
No.
It's okay to disagree to agree.
Yeah. Proverbs 8:13. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogance, an evil way, and the perverse mouth I hate. That's what the Lord says, and that's what we see once again. You know, we've got to get morality back in. And at the polls, when I was doing poll watching, I had to leave a couple times because I had to take someone to some rides. There was a fellow outside from Boston. He lives in Boston, came down to help with the Democrats with handing out literature at the, you know, outside. And he and I were talking, and a really nice guy. So I mentioned George Soros because I think he's an enemy of the country, right? He accused me of being an anti-Semite. I said, well, wait a minute. I said, I'm not at all. I said, I love the Jewish people. I said, you know, one of these days, a Jew's going to rule the world, you know, and he really does still, but not yet in the full capacity. But I said, no, he got me all wrong. I said, I've never been accused of that, never will be, because, or, you know, then we spoke. I mean, he understood what I was talking about. But anyway, we had good conversation. Still don't agree, but I think I got him to think about some things, and that's what we need to do, is try to get each other to think about some things. So he got me to think about some things too. Also, I did want to not forget to mention, which I failed to mention a couple times is about the COVID deaths, or the deaths in the papers where there's people dying from, not so much from COVID, from the shots, and they're not given a reason, that's why. I thought the lady was gonna ask some questions. I might have a couple more minutes or a minute.
About 30 seconds.
Okay. The 2% canvas, is that gonna be done soon, the hand count, is that?
Yeah, Worse is in the process now of getting ready to do that.
Okay.
This election right now.
Yeah. Is there gonna be a notice, or just gonna go into that, or any?
I think you can just go into it.
Yeah. Okay. That's like, just, I was supposed to ask.
Okay.
And, I guess there was some. All right, well, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
Scott?
My boss is a Jewish carpenter.
Mine too. Yep.
Scott Miller, 822 Tucker Street. The last time I spoke at a county commissioners meeting, I said about my phone. And, I'm not an electronics person, so I don't know how to do all that stuff. I like to say, we're not all doctors, lawyers, and engineers. But some people thought it was funny that the old guy can't do his phone. Well, I don't do that. How many people out there can build a house from the sewer lateral to the roof vent? I can. How many people out there can strip a car down to a chassis, put it back together, and have it work? I've done that. So before people want to make smart comments to me about not knowing electronics, you better look in the mirror and see what else I can do that you can't do. Also, I'm going to go as quick as I can. You'll have to forgive me if I talk fast. The 3-minute rule, even though he didn't do it. Last time I was here, I got a parking ticket because it was such a long meeting. I did go out and put extra money in it. And a lot of people say, well, park over at the parking garage. There's a difference between 50 cents an hour to park on the street and $1 an hour to park in the parking garage. And maybe I'm just giving off the wrong persona, but when I moved up here and bought my house, there were times I literally was counting change to buy my kid milk. So, before you think, oh, it's only 50 cents an hour more, yeah, there was times I didn't have that 50 cents. And then also speaking on inflation, I got my new water bill. A year ago, I would have $100 a quarter water bill. Now I'm getting basically double that now because of the fees and the rain tax and stuff. And, it hurts. And people, want to say, well, Social Security, I'm sorry. Salad mix at Aldi went from 99 cents a bag to $1.75. I didn't get a 75% increase. My water bill went up 50%. I didn't get a 50% increase. Skinless, boneless chicken breasts, earlier this year, $1.99 a pound, $3.99 a pound. My Social Security disability check did not double. So when people start talking about, well, it's only this much, that much, Providence hasn't shined on everybody equally. And it doesn't make them good or bad or anything. It's just the way life is. I hate to remind people about life 101. Life isn't fair. But I just wanted to bring those things to y'all's attention. And I realize y'all don't have anything to do with the water authority, but, who do I complain to about that? And then they go, well.
Was your rain tax a line item on your bill?
$10. $10 a month. Or that's the way I'm going to take it, because I ain't seen nothing in the newspaper about it. Here, I'll show it to you.
That'll go up.
And then they have the administrative fees that they put on there, for water authority and sewer authority. And it's just not right. And I don't mean to pick on you, Rick, but Rick owns rental properties. When he collects his rent and does his taxes, he can write 100% of that off of his income. I don't get that write-off. So it's unfair to those of us that are owner occupants, and, it was always said that, oh, it's gonna be based on permeability, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a great
Well,
point, Scott.
I put in, the plastic piping and made a drain field, so my gutters, nothing drains into the street. But what I can tell you is I had to raise my side yard because when there's a downpour, there's that much, quarter inch for those people out there, of curb, and it would stream through my yard and flood my basement. I had to take remedial action to not be flooded by the government's rain, because it's coming from the street. These little things, they add up. I mean, they add up, and not all of us were as blessed as others.
Scott, I just want to bring that point back up, that you can't write those expenses off. And that's one topic I've never heard in our conversations, as far as fair and equitable. I'm glad you made that comment, because now I can bring that back to, this isn't going to stop here, by the way.
No, it's going to keep going up. People need to realize this is the nose of the camel under the proverbial tent, and it's going to keep going up. And it's not, I'm not trying to say I want the Susquehanna and the Chesapeake Bay to burst into flames like the Toledo River fires back in the 60s and 70s. But, there's only so much some of us can afford, kind of like y'all were saying about, different areas and how we got to stay competitive if we want to get the talent at the county level. Right. I moved here from D.C. because I couldn't afford to live in D.C. I bought a fixer-upper, spent a ton of money on fixing it up. I mean, really nice. But, I moved here, excuse the way I say it, because I was poor. And I knew that this area had no economy, y'all talk about some of these wages. 30 years ago, I considered $25 an hour virtual slavery. So when y'all talk about people making 20 bucks an hour, I'm like, 30 years ago, before I injured my spine and couldn't walk for a while, I wouldn't have set my alarm clock for that.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. Okay, we've completed our agenda, and so our meeting will be adjourned. We'll have our next meeting on Thursday, November 17th, 2022 at 10 a.m. Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Maya.
You're a super. So I have to go home and get a bar of soap and stick it in my mouth. You're swearing. So I'll be back after lunch.
I didn't even swear.
Yeah, I swore. Did you hear me swear?
No.
I said 3 words.
No. Which words?
And it's documented in perpetuity.
No. God bless you.